Hey friends, how you doing there? Well, welcome back to what is it, Masechta Tainus? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Lamed Tes, Daf 39 of Masechta Yevamos. Friends, well, the first part of the Daf, we sort of wrap up the Mishnah from yesterday that talks about the Shomeres Yavam, who gets an inheritance and how to divide that up. And then we get to a new Mishnah which talks once again about the mitzvah of Yibum being with the eldest brother, and then it gets into some interesting Gemaras. So what do you want me to tell you? Friends, we're going to start on Daf Lamed Ches Amud Beis. 2 lines from the bottom. Abaye Omar Reisha Denofel Kshehi Shomeres Yavam Sefer Denofel Kishehi Tachtov De Baal V'Ksav Abaye Yodo Ki Yodo. Wow, friends, who could remind me what the Mishnah is talking about? The Mishnah had said that if you have this Shomeres Yavam, right? You have Ruvain's married to Sarah. Ruvain dies. Shimon needs to do Yibum with Sarah, of course. So now they haven't actually done Yibum, right? She's a Shomeres Yavam. She's awaiting Yibum, and then she gets an inheritance. So both Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel agree that she can do whatever she wants with it. She could sell it. She can give it away. Do whatever she wants. Now the Seifa had said that if she dies, so then there's a machlokas between Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel. Beit Shammai says that her family and Shimon divided up equally, and Beit Hillel says that, well, whoever's in possession of the property keeps it, right? But that's it. There's nothing other than that. Whoever has the property keeps it. So now it says Abaye. So Reisha Denaflu Kishehi Shomeres Yavam. So the first part of the Mishnah is talking about when she gets the inheritance, when she is awaiting Yibum, and she hasn't yet married Shimon, and she gets this property. She can do whatever she wants with it. Sefer Denaflu Kishehi Tachtov De Baal. However, the Seifa, when it's talking about that she dies, so that is talking about when she has already done Yibum. No, I'm sorry, the Seifa is talking about when she gets the inheritance, when she is married to Ruvain still, right? So that's the Seifa, right? So again, so the Reisha, the first part of the Mishnah, is talking about where she gets the inheritance after Ruvain dies, and she hasn't yet done Yibum with Shimon, and she gets this inheritance, so then she can do whatever she wants with it. However, the Seifa is talking about a situation where she had gotten this inheritance when she was still married to Ruvain. Now, and it says, right, V'Kosover Abaye Yodo Ki Yodo. And Abaye holds that when a woman is married, so she and her husband would have equal rights to that inheritance. And therefore, when they're married, they have equal rights to that inheritance. But when Ruvain dies, and then Sarah had not yet done Yibum with Shimon, all there was a zika between Sarah and Shimon. So then, right, if when they're married, right, if when Ruvain and Sarah were married, they had equal rights to that inheritance, certainly then when Ruvain dies and Shimon hasn't yet done Yibum with Sarah, so they're not married, all they have is a zika between them, certainly then Shimon's hand is going to be weaker than Sarah's hand, and therefore he doesn't have, right, according to Beit Hillel, he doesn't have equal rights to the inheritance, and therefore the inheritance remains in its possession. Whereas Beit Shammai disagrees and would say that no, when they are married, right, when Sarah and Reuven are married, so then Reuven's right to the inheritance is stronger than Sarah's, and when Reuven dies and now Shimon has a zika with Sarah, but they haven't actually done Yibum, so then when they're married, his hand would be stronger than hers, but now that there's only a zika between them, it's an equal playing field. And therefore, Beit Shammai says that they would divide it up equally. So again, the Reisha is talking about when she inherited this property when she was a Shomeres Yavam, and therefore the property belongs to her, she could do whatever she wants with it. However, the Seifa, the Seifa is talking about when she inherited the property when she was still married to Ruvain. Now, according to Beit Hillel, when she was married to Ruvain, so Ruvain and Sarah had equal rights to that inheritance. Now when Ruvain dies and Shimon only has a zika with Sarah, so then his hand is weaker than Sarah's, and according to Beis Hillel, whoever is in possession of the property keeps it, right? Shimon does not have any kind of equal right to it. Whereas Beis Shammai says that when Reuven and Sarah are married, Reuven's right is stronger than Sarah's, but when Reuven dies, Shimon and Sarah have sort of an equal playing field through that zika, and they would divide it up equally. Right, so let's start again. Let's read it again. Abai Omer says, Abai Reisha Dunafla Kshi Shemeis Yavam. So the first part of the Mishnah is talking about when she gets the inheritance, when she is sort of awaiting Yibum with Shimon, and she can do whatever she wants with it. Seifa Dunafla Kshihi Tachtov Debal. Whereas the second part of the Mishnah, where there's a machlokos between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, is talking about when she inherited the property when she was still married to Reuven. And now Reuven dies, and there's a zika between Shimon and Sarah. Because of Abai Yado Kiyado, Abai says that when, that really according to Beis Hillel, which of course we paskin like, when Sarah and Reuven were married, so they had equal rights to that property and to the inheritance. And now when Reuven is dead, so then there's only a zika between Shimon and Sarah, so she has a stronger right than he does, and the property just remains wherever they are right now. He does not have a right to chap half of it. Amalei Rave says to Abai, Idinafli lo kshehi tachtov deba'al tuchli amalo pligi diyado adifa miyado. Says Rave, he disagrees with Abai. Abai had said that when Reuven and Sarah were married, so they had equal rights to this inheritance. Says Rave, not so. Everyone agrees, both Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel would agree, that if Sarah got this inheritance when she was married to Reuven, that Reuven's claim would be stronger to it, that the husband's claim would be stronger to it. And therefore, when Reuven dies and there's now a zika between Shimon and Sarah, which is kilu, a step down from actual marriage, so then it's an even playing field, and even Beis Hillel would agree that they would divide it equally. So again, Amalei Rava says to Abai, Idinafila Kishihi Tachtov Debal. If she got this inheritance when she was still married to Reuven, the Chuliamalo Plige, both Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel would agree, the Yado Adifa Miyado, that when they're married, Reuven's hand is stronger than Sarah's. He has a stronger right to the claim to the inheritance. Ella, and therefore, through the when he dies and there's a zika between Shimon, it would be equal. Ella idi v'idi do naflula kashi shomeres yavim. So rather, says Rave, both the Reisha and the Seifa are talking about when Reuven has already died and she hasn't yet done Yibum with Shimon. Reisha de lo avad b'maimer. But in the first part of the Mishnah, Shimon had not yet done Maimer, had not yet given her Kiddushin money, when she inherited this inheritance, and therefore she could do whatever she wants with it. Right? There was no Maimer or anything between her and Shimon. She could do whatever she wants with it. Seifa, whereas in the Seifa, when Beis Shammai says that they divided up equally, the Ovid Ba Maimer, that is talking about where he had already done Maimer at the time that she received the inheritance, because of a Rave, and Rave holds Maimer the Beis Shammai, O Sevada Yerusa, that Beis Shammai holds that once Shimon has already done Maimer, so then it makes her like an engaged woman, V'safek Nisua, and like a Safek marriage situation, Vada Yerusa Lidchos B'tzare. When we say that it makes her considered to be engaged to Shimon, that means to the extent that if you have a situation with Reuven is married to Sarah, Shimon's married to Rivke, and then there's like Levi, and then actually, do you even need Levi? Probably don't even need Levi, right? But if no, actually I think you do need Levi. Yeah, so if like Reuven dies and then Levi does Maimer with Sarah, so now Levi, and then I guess Shimon dies, so Levi would be also to the Sarah of Rivke, because she's the sister of Sarah, who he had done Maimer with. Okay? And then V'safek Nesua Lachlok B'nechasim, and it's like a Safek marriage, Lachlok B'nechasim, to the extent that they divide up the property equally. So that is what Maimer does. That's why Beis Shammai says that her family and him and Shimon divided up the estate equally because he had already done Maimer. Alright. Idma Mishmei to Rabbi Elazar Kavasa Duava, Vidma Mishmei to Rabbi Yosef Chanina Kavasa Dabai. So it was stated in the name of Rabbi Elazar in support of Rava, and it was stated in the name of Rabbi Yosef Chanina in support of Abaye. When we Rabbi Elazar Achi, would Rabbi Elazar really state be supporting? Would Rabbi Elazar really be supporting Rava? Rabbi Elazar. But Rabbi Elazar says, "Maimer leVeishamai eina kona el lidchos b'tzara bilvad." But Rabbi Elazar, all Rabbi Elazar says is that Maimer, according to Beis Shammai, is only kona in order to be docha the tzara, right? So that Levi wouldn't be able to do yibum with the tzara of Rivka. Meaning, Rava had explained that according to Beis Shammai, Maimer is docha b'tzara and also enables them to inherit equally, right? That Shimon would inherit equally with Sarah's family. Now, Rabbi Elazar only points out that Maimer, according to Beis Shammai, is that it's docha the tzara, but doesn't say anything about the inheritance. So how could it be that Rabbi Elazar is like Rava Se'ipo? So the Gemara says, all right, flip it around. Rather say that Rabbi Elazar is like Abaye and Rabbi Yosef Chanina is like Rava. By same, if you want to say the Olam Lo Tepo, really don't flip it around. And really Rabbi Elazar is like Rava. Amulach Rabbi Elazar, and Rabbi Elazar would say, Ki Amri Ono, to lo sagi lo beget, el deboin ami chalitza. Look, when I say that Maimer, according to Beis Shammai, it's only docha b'tzara, meaning the point is that all it does is to say that Levi can't do yibum with the tzara of Rivka, but if they wanted to do, but they still need to do chalitza. But b'nechasim d'lokani miami, but I didn't say anything about the property, right? And therefore, Maimer, when it comes to, right, according to Beis Shammai, right, Rabbi Elazar would say that I agree with Rava's sentiment, which is that Maimer enables Shimon to divide up to get an equal share in the property. So Rabbi Elazar can argue that he agrees with Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi Elazar can argue that he agrees with Rava that according to Beis Shammai, yes, Maimer would make Levi also to do yibum with the tzara of Rivka, but also that Shimon could divide up in the property with Sarah's family. Amar Rav Papa says Rav Papa Diuka de Masnisin Kavos de Abaye. So says Rav Papa that you can infer from our Mishnah like Abaye. Ravagav de Kasha Mesa, and even though we have a question about the fact that that in the Sefer we say that Davke Sarah died. The Katani, as the Mishnah says, Nechasim anechnosim v'yotzim ima, that it refers to the property that comes in and out of the marriage with her. Meaning, what did Abaye say? Abaye had said that the Sefer, that the second part of the Mishnah is Davka talking about when when she inherited the property when she was still married to Reuven. Now, if we look at the Mishnah, so what does it say? It says, Nechasim anechnosim v'yotzim ima, that the property that comes in and out with her. So, my nichnosin, umay yotzin, what does it mean to come in, to come out? Lav nichnosin l'shus habal, v'yotzim l'shus habal, l'shus ha'ov, or doesn't it mean property that comes into the possession of the husband and then leaves from the possession of the husband and goes to the father? So we see that apparently it's talking about property that she inherited when she was still married to Reuven. The Kasha Mesa, when it says that even though there's a question about Mesa, so it means yeah, the Kasha against the question against this is that, well, why do you have to be arguing about the actual property after death? Why can't you even be arguing about the fruits of that property and while she's still alive, right? In terms of being dividing up with the estate of the Sarah's estate, right? Meaning, if she got this inheritance when she's married to Reuven, so we're saying that then she dies, and we're trying to figure out. Beis Shammai says that her family divides up with Shimon, and Beis Hillel says that everything stays where they are. But why does it have to be when she dies? It could even be that it's talking about when she's still alive. And the question is in terms of what to do with the fruits of this property. Who has the rights to the fruits? So that is the question about on that. V'sulamidi, and that is that. Meaning that we could say that, like Rav Papa is saying, that there's an inference from our Mishnah that it's taka like Abaye, and that it's referencing the possession of Ruvain, the husband. And we have this kasha about how come a dafka needs to be after she died. Maybe this machlokas could be equally relevant even when she's alive, but with regard to who gets the chaparain, the fruits. Konsarei chule. Now the Mishnah had said at the end of the Mishnah that once they get married, so that once they do yibum, so then it's like they're just a regular married couple. What's the nafkamina? That we're saying that once they do yibum, so then they're just like a regular married couple. So it says Rabbi Yosef Bar Chanina, well, it means that they're like a regular married couple, in that if they now want to break up the marriage, so then they need a get, like a regular marriage, and if they then want to get remarried, that's also fine, like a regular marriage. So the Gemara says, well, isn't it obvious that once they do yibum and they want to break it off, so they need a get? Well, I may have thought to say, I may have thought to say that that Shimon marries Sarah v'yibma, and he does yibum with her. So I might think that even once they do yibum, it says v'yibma, that still there are certain aspects of yibum to the extent that if they want to break it off, they wouldn't use a get, they would use chalitza. So kamash malon. So therefore, what Rabbi Yosef Bar Chanina is teaching, that no, don't say that they break it off with chalitza. Rather, they would need a get machzira pshita. And when it says that, okay, and if they get divorced, they can get remarried, isn't that obvious? Well, I may have thought mitzvah d'rami rachmana ole avda hash to take him ole biser eishes och. Well, I may have thought to say, look, when Ruvain died, so then there was generally speaking, Shimon would be asur, of course, to Sarah, because it's eishes och. She was married to his brother. However, when Ruvain dies, so in the context of yibum, so Shimon can marry Sarah. But if they get divorced, so zeh, the mitzvah was already done. The mitzvahs, came and went. They then got divorced. So at this point, they can't get married anymore. It's no longer yibum. It's just simply eishes och. So kamash malon. Therefore, what Rabbi Yosef Bar Chanina is saying, that it's right. They're considered like a regular married couple, and even if they get divorced, they can get remarried. To which the Gemara says, wait, but maybe that's actually a good point. Maybe in the context of yibum, Shimon is allowed to marry Sarah, but once they get divorced, yibum's gone, and they can't get remarried. It's eishes och. So Amakra v'lakcha lo leisha. No, Shimon will take her as a wife. Kevin shalakcha. No, once they get married, then they're a married couple in every respect, and if they get divorced, they can get remarried. The Mishnah then finished off by saying, that a ksuba should be from the property of Ruvain, of her initial husband. So now says the Gemara, my time, how come? Well, Shimon wasn't planning to marry Sarah. The circumstances dictated that all of a sudden Shimon marries Sarah. Ruvain died. Now Shimon marries Sarah, but he wasn't necessarily planning on it. And therefore, he can argue, like, why should I be responsible for the ksuba? I wasn't planning to marry Sarah. The Torah says that I need to marry Sarah, so I need to marry Sarah. But why should I be responsible for the ksuba? V'leisla min arishin takinula misheni. But if there is no property to pay the ksuba from Ruvain, well then, yes, Shimon will be responsible for ksuba, kadei shelo te'kala be'einav le'otzia, so that it won't be easy for him to simply divorce her, right? Meaning, the part of the ksuba is that, well, if you get divorced, then there's a payment that you have to make to her, and therefore, it's sort of a, what's that thing called? A deterrent. right? If there was no ksuba payment, if he was just off the hook, he could just, divorce Sarah and that's it. Go on with his life. But by making sure that there is sort of financial implications of getting divorced, so then you won't just divorce her on a whim. Rather they're nafkaminis, and therefore, if there was no money from Reuven's estate to be able to afford to pay for a ksuba, so then Shimon is responsible to pay for it, to make sure that he'll think twice before simply divorcing Sarah. Alright, now we get to a new Mishnah. Mitzvah b'gadol liyabim. Alright, as we've seen before on Daf Chav Daled. So it says that there's a mitzvah for the eldest to do yibum. Lo ratzu ma'alchin al kol ha'achin. So, if the oldest doesn't want to do yibum, so then we go to, to the next brother. Right, we go to each of the brothers. Lo ratzu chozin eitzel gadol v'omlo alecha mitzvah o chalatz o yiyab. And if none of the brothers want to do yibum, so then they go back to the eldest brother and they say, look, brother, alecha mitzvah, look, the mitzvah is on you, right? As we said, v'hoya bechor asher teled. So, right, and we said that the mitzvah is with the bechor, so if none of the brothers want to do yibum, so we go back to the eldest and we say, look, brother, alecha mitzvah, the mitzvah is upon you, o chalatz o yiyabim, look, either do yibum or do chalitza. Tala b'ka'in at sheyagdil, if they said, wait, well, we have a brother who is a minor, why don't we just wait until he becomes big? Or b'gadol at sheyavim b'din asayam, maybe the eldest brother is out traveling someplace. So they say, well, why don't we wait until he comes back, and then we'll ask him. O cherish, o shote. Or maybe there was a brother that's deaf or dumb. Ein shomin lo. No, we don't listen. Ela omrim lo alecha mitzvah o chalatz o yiyabim. We just say to the brothers that are there. We say to the oldest one that's there. We say, look, don't play any games. Make a decision. Yibum or chalitza. Says the Gemara, Itmar, Ustaka stated, Bias ko'in, v'chalitzas godol. So if there's an option between, the oldest brother, he's like, look, I'm not doing yibum, but I'll do chalitza. And you have a younger brother who's saying, I'll do yibum. So, Pligibar b'yochanan v'Yeshua ben Levi. Staka machlokas v'Yochanan v'Yeshua ben Levi, charomar, bias ko'in adifo. V'charomar, chalitzas godol adifo. So one opinion is that, look, if the younger brother wants to do yibum, so that's preferable. Yibum is preferable. Whereas the other opinion is that no, the oldest brother is preferable, even if it's just chalitza. So the opinion who says that it's better for the younger brother to do yibum is because the mitzvah is to do yibum, right? We want to keep the brother, the name of the deceased brother alive. You're not going to do that with chalitza. So therefore, better, if you have the younger brother who's willing to do yibum, so that's better. And according to the opinion who says that the chalitza of the older one is better, right? That, stick with the oldest brother, even if it's just chalitza. Because in place of the eldest brother, so then, the yibum of the younger child is irrelevant. So if you have the older brother who's willing to get involved, even if it's just chalitza, that is preferable. Tanan, we learn in our Mishnah, lo ratzu, that if the elder brother is not interested in doing yibum, machzirun al kol ha'achin, so then we go to the next brother. My lab, what does that mean? He's not interested. Lo ratzu liyabim ela lachlot. Well, I'll explain what it means. Is that the older brother doesn't want to do yibum, but he's down to do chalitza, right? When it says lo ratza, he's not interested. It means he's not interested in doing yibum, but he's down to do chalitza v'katani ma'achin etzel achin. And yet, the Mishnah still says, what do we do in this case when he doesn't want to do yibum, but the oldest brother is willing to do chalitza? We go to the next brother. Shmamina bias ko'in nadifa. So we see then clearly that even though the eldest brother was willing to do chalitza, we still figured, let's see, maybe the younger brother wants to do yibum. So we see that the younger brother doing yibum is preferable to the older brother doing chalitza. No, that's not true. No, it means if the older brother was not interested at all, wasn't interested in Yibum, wasn't interested in Chalitza, so then we go to the next brother, the Kavosa Gabi Achin, that is similar by the other brothers, Lo Rotzu, Lo Lachlos, Lo Liyabim, that if the other brothers don't want to do Chalitza or Yibum, Amai Chozim Eitzel Hagadol. I'm sorry, so fact the Gemara, wait, I lost it. The Kavosa Gabi Achin, Lo Rotzu, Lo Lachlos, Lo Liyabim. 1 second. So if we're saying that the eldest brother was not interested in doing Yibum and was not interested in doing Chalitza, and then I guess they asked the next brother, and the next brother also was not interested in doing Yibum or Chalitza. Nobody was interested in taking any part in this process, right? So the Chavos L'Gabe Achin L'Rotzu Lo Lachlos V'Lo Liyabim Amai Chozim Eitzel Gadol. Well, then why would we go back to the eldest brother if he already said that he's not interested? So the answer is Limich B'yeh. Well, to force him to do Yibum or Chalitza, well, why don't you force them? Okay, well, because since the mitzvah is preferable to do with the eldest brother, so he's the one that they go back and force to do it. Says the Gemara, it's not, we learn in our Mishnah, ad sheyagdil in shomenlo. So if you, right, if they say, well, we have this younger brother who's still a minor, why don't we wait to see if when he gets older, maybe he'll be interested in doing Yibum or Chalitza. So we say, Ein Shomen Lo. We don't listen. V'i biasko in adifa, Amain Shomen Lo, Nintu Dil Magadol Liyabim. Oh, friends, you hear the kasha? According to the opinion who says that the Yibum of the younger brother is preferable to the Chalitza of the older brother, well then how come we simply dismiss the option of waiting for the minor brother to become older, and maybe he'll be interested in doing Yibum. After all, if Yibum of the younger brother is preferable to the Chalitza of the older brother, so why not wait for this minor to come of age, and maybe then he'll want to do Yibum. So from the fact that we ignore that option, it must be Memele that is not a good option. The younger brother doing Yibum is not a good option. The younger brother doing Yibum is not the preferred option. So the timer Gemara says, well, that's not exactly a proof to say that the Chalitza of the Gadol is preferable, because after all, the Mishnah had also said that if they suggest waiting for the eldest brother to come back from his trip, that also we don't listen. Amai, but why not? But shouldn't we wait? If we're saying that the Chalitza of the Gadol is preferable, so why don't we wait until he comes back? Because maybe he'll want to do Chalitza. So no, rather the reason why we don't wait for the older brother to come back home, or for the younger brother for the minor brother to come of age, is because we don't want to wait for the mitzvah. And therefore we say, look, we're not waiting for the minor brother to come of age, we're not waiting for the older brother to come back from his trip. Whoever's here, somebody, do Yibum, do Chalitza. If nobody wants to do it, then let's take the oldest of the pack, and he'll do either Yibum or Chalitza. Says the Gemara, Ista Amrei, that those who understand the machlokas like this. Look, everyone agrees that if the younger brother is willing to do Yibum, that's preferable, right? We want to keep the right Reuven's name going. So therefore everyone agrees that if the younger brother is willing to do Yibum, so that's ideal. Right? Well, no, ideal would be for the oldest brother to want to do Yibum, but if the oldest brother doesn't want to do Yibum, but the younger brother does, Givaldik. Ki plige, this machloka says b'chalitzas koin, regarding the chalitza of the younger brother. What does that mean? This is how it's stated: chalitzas koin v'chalitzas gadol. Well, what if the older brother is willing to? What if the older brother is willing to do chalitza? Nobody's interested in doing Yibum. But if the older brother is open to doing Chalitza, but so is the younger brother, so Pliga, this is where they argue. Pliga bar Yochanan v'Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, Machlokes of Yochanan and Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, Chad Omar Chalitzas Gadol Adifa. So one opinion is, look, it's preferable, if the older brother and the younger brother are both willing to do Chalitza, so preference goes to the older brother. V'Chad Omar Ke'adol Ininu. Whereas the other opinion is that, no, l'maaseh, it doesn't matter if the older brother does chalitza or the younger brother. Mandar chalitza is gadol adifa, do mitzvah begadol. So the opinion, which is that it's preferable for the older brother to do chalitza, well, that's because the mitzvah is with the older brother. So whether it's yibum, whether it's chalitza, it's preferable for the older brother to do it. V'idach ki aminan mitzvah begadol inin yibum, aval inin chalitza kadod ininu. Whereas the other opinion is look, when we say that it's preferred for the gadol to do it, that's to do yibum. But already if nobody's doing yibum, and the gadol is willing to do yibum, the cotton's willing to do, gadol is willing to do chalitza, the younger one's willing to do chalitza. So in that case, it doesn't really matter if it's the older one or the younger one, because the older one is only preferred when it comes to yibum. Once nobody's interested in doing yibum, so then it doesn't matter if it's the older one or the younger one. Tanan, we learn in our Mishnah, L'ratzu chozun eitzel gadol, that if none of the brothers were interested, so they go back to the oldest one. Now, my lab, L'ratzu liyabim el lachlotz. So the Gemara wants to say, what does it mean that nobody's interested? It means that none of the brothers were interested in doing yibum. Everybody was only interested in doing chalitza. V'katani chozun eitzel gadol, and it says, and if nobody's interested in doing yibum, everybody's only interested in doing chalitza. What do? You go back to the eldest brother, Liab, where am I? You go back to the eldest brother, Vishmamina, Chalitzas Gadol Adifa. So we see that if nobody's interested in doing Yibum, but everyone's willing to do Chalitza, we go to the oldest brother. So what do we see? We see that apparently there's a preference for the oldest brother to do Chalitza. Lo, not true. Lo Ratzu Lo Lachlos Lo Liabim. It means that nobody was interested in doing anything. Not Yibum, not Chalitza. Techavasai, Wait, so does that mean that, so you're saying that nobody wants to do Yibum or Chalitza, not even the oldest brother? So then why go back to the eldest brother if he's not interested in doing either Yibum or Chalitza? So the Gemara says, well, to force him. Why don't you force the other brothers? Well, since ultimately the mitzvah of Yibum falls upon the older brother, so we force him, right? We go back to him and we force him to do chalitza if nobody's interested in doing yibum. Tashma, come in here. Our Mishnah had said that if the brothers say, wait, our eldest brother is out on a trip, why don't we wait until he comes back? Ein shomilo, we say that, no, we don't listen. Chalitzas gadol adifa. But if it enters your mind to say that the chalitza of the eldest brother is preferred, well, amayin shomilo. Well, then why don't we listen? Ninter dilma asi v'chalitz. Why don't you just wait until the eldest brother comes back? Because maybe he'll be interested in doing chalitza. In which case, that would be preferred. So from the fact that we say that we don't listen, clearly means that there isn't a preference for the eldest one to do chalitza. But according to that reasoning, when we say that, yeah, but also the inverse is the same in that if you have this child who's a minor and they say, well, why don't we wait until he becomes old enough and then maybe he'll be willing to do, right? 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 So we say that if there's a child who's a minor and they say, why don't we wait until he becomes of age? We say that we don't listen there either. But why not? Maybe when he becomes of age, he'll be willing to do Yibum. No, so the point is that we just don't want to wait, right? You can't bring meaning we want to bring a proof from the fact that we said that we don't wait for the oldest brother to come back on a trip, then that seems to mean that clearly there's no preference in the oldest brother doing Yibum, doing Chalitza, which we say that's not necessarily true, because also we say that for the younger brother, right, for a brother who's a minor, we don't wait for him to get older, but maybe he'd be willing to do Yibum, which is the best. So the Gemara says, no, it's a different thing at play over here, which is that we don't want to wait unnecessarily. So rather, if the eldest brother is on a trip, or if the youngest brother is a minor, forget about it. Just let's make a decision based on who we have available now. Says the Gemara, it's not awesome. So we have a Mishnah in Ksubis Bechoris. Mitzvahs Yibum Kodamas Mitzvahs Chalitza. So the Mishnah says that, look, it's preferable to do Yibum rather than Chalitza. Now it says in the Mishnah, so initially, when Shimon would do Yibum, So he, once upon a time, back in the day, so if Shimon was doing Yibum with Sarah, it was l'shem mitzvah. It was with pure intention to do a mitzvah. Achshav Shem is skavin in the shem mitzvah, but nowadays, Shimon doesn't really have pure intentions. Who knows what his intentions are, but it's not simply just to fulfill the mitzvah. So they said, look, nowadays it's preferable to do chalitza rather than yibum. Amar Rab, says Rab, in kofin, but we don't force you to do chalitza. Right? I mean, now, I don't know what I just said, but nowadays it's preferable to do chalitza rather than yibum. But says Rab, we don't force you to do chalitza. Kiyasu l'kamid de Rab, when they came before Rav, Amarlu, he said to them, Iboyis chalotz, Iboyis yibum. Look, if you want to do chalitza, great. If you want to do yibum, you can do that as well. Bedidach talarachmana, it's up to you. Vim lo yachpot ish. If you're not interested, then you don't need to do yibum. Oim chofetz, Iboy chalotz, Iboy yabim. But if you're interested in doing yibum, up to you. Do chalitza, do yibum, it's up to you. Vafar Yehuda savar in kofin, and Rav Yehuda also held like his Rebbe Rav, that we don't force you to do chalitza. Mida asking Rav Yehuda begita de chalitza, from the fact that Rav Yehuda, put into the chalitza document, eich plonis bas ploni, how Sarah, akavas yas ploni Yevamos, brought Shimon, kadmona levedina to the Bezdin, ve'ishtamoda inu de achva de misna me'abaniu, and we know that Shimon is Ruvain's brother. They're both sons of Yaakov. Ve'amrile itzovis liyabim yabim, and we said to Shimon, look, if you want to do yibum, you could do yibum. Ve'lo itla la raglich diyamino, and if not, then extend your right leg. Ve'itla la, and Shimon then extended his right leg to Sarah, ragla diyamino, his right leg. Ve'sharas Sine me'ara gloi, and Sarah then removed Shimon's shoe from his foot. V'yarkaz banpoi roka mischayzel vedina, and then she spit before him onto the ground, spit that was visible to the Bezdin, al-ara, onto the ground. V'Reb Chia bar Avia misayim b'mishmei to Rav Yehuda. And Rav Chia bar Avia would then conclude in the name of Rav Yehuda, v'akrinu ma'ashekosu b'sefer oraisa de Moshe, and we read that which was said in the Torah. That we caused them to recite that which was said in the Torah. Okay. Ishtemoda inu. So now says the Gemara, when it says that we know that Shimon is the brother of Ruvain, the deceased, pligiba ravacha v'ravina, Chad Omer be'edim, v'chad Omer afilu karov, afilu isha. So it's machlokas between Ravacha and Ravina. One opinion is that you need witnesses to testify that Shimon is in fact Ruvain's brother. The other opinion is that no, it can even be a relative, it could be a woman, people who generally don't give testimony. V'ilchsa galuye milsa be'amahu v'afilu karov, afilu isha. And says the Gemara that the halacha is that lemaise, we view this not as a testimony, but simply revealing and confirming that Shimon is in fact Ruvain's brother, and therefore it could be a relative, it could be a woman. People who don't normally give testimony would be acceptable to say that Shimon is in fact Ruvain's brother. Says the Gemara, Barishona, initially, Shoyim l'shem mitzvah. Initially, when Shimon would do Yibum with Sarah, so he had intention to do the mitzvah of Yibum. Mitzvah Yibum kodemes, so therefore, the mitzvah of Yibum was preferable to Chalitza. Right? Kodemes the mitzvah Chalitza. So Yibum was preferable to Chalitza. But however, nowadays, Shem is kavin the Shem mitzvah, where Shimon is not doing Yibum with Sarah with the intention of doing a mitzvah properly, the mitzvah of Yibum. Amru, they said mitzvah Chalitza kodemes the mitzvah Yibum, better to do Chalitza rather than Yibum. Amar Rami Bar Chama, Amar B'Yitzchak, Chazul Omar, mitzvah Yibum kodemes the mitzvah Chalitza. Says Rami Bar Chama that actually, right in the name of Rabbi Yitzchak, that actually they then reversed the perspective, and they say that nowadays actually Yibum is preferable to Chalitza. Omar Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak, So Rav Nachman Yitzchak says to Rabbi Bar Chama, Achshuri Dare. I don't understand. What, have the generations gotten better, more kosher? I don't understand. We said that there used to be a situation with the Yibum not being done with the proper intention. And now you're saying that it was restored to being the preferred method. What, have we gotten better? So Meikar Savri L'Kabashol V'Sof Savri L'Karabonis. We say no, it's simply, initially they thought to hold like Abba Shaul, but in the end they hold like the rabbis. The Tanya is, we learn in the Bryce, Abba Shaul Omer, says Abba Shaul, Akonis is Yivim to L'Shem Noy L'Shem Ishus, that if Shimon does Yibum with Sarah because he is attracted to her, or he wants to marry her, L'Shum Dover Achor, for some ulterior motive, Ki'ilu Pogeh Be'erva, it's as if he is being with somebody with a forbidden relationship, V'Karvani Be'enai Lios Havolad Mamzer, and I'm so close to assuming that any child that they have together would be a mamzer. That is Abba Shaul's opinion. Whereas the Chachamim say that no, the pasuk says Yevamos aleh mikol makom, and that could be in any event. So meaning Abba Shaul says that it's a big problem if Shimon is doing yibum with Sarah for ulterior motives, and therefore, so initially they thought to say like Abba Shaul, and therefore they said better to do chalitza. But the rabbis argue and say, no, look, if you do yibum, you do yibum, whatever your motives are. And therefore, that's why they ended up saying, you know what, even nowadays, yibum is preferable because, regardless of what your motives are, yibum is yibum. It says the Gemara, Mantana Ladutana Rabbanan, who is the author of the following brayso, Yevamos aleh, that when it says that Shimon does yibum with Sarah, mitzvah shebatchila, so mitzvah, it's a mitzvah shebatchila, hoysa olav bichlal heter, that initially Shimon was permitted to Sarah, right? Meaning before Sarah married Reuven, Shimon could have married Sarah, but Nesra. But then, when Shimon's brother Reuven married Sarah, so then he's not allowed to marry Sarah because of Eishes Ach. But now, once again, because Reuven died, because of Yibum, she now becomes permissible to Shimon. Yachol tachzu leter rishon. Is it possible that she goes back to her initial permitted status, like before she married Reuven? Tamalomu Yevamos aleh mitzvah. Well, it says Yevamos aleh, and it's a mitzvah. So what does that mean? So Mantana, who's the author of this brayso? So Amr Bitzchak bar Avdimi Abba Shaul. So it says Rabbi Bitzchak bar Avdimi that the author of this brayso is Abba Shaul. V'achi kamer, and this is how you to make sense of this brayso. You ready? Yevamos aleh mitzvah. So it says that there's this mitzvah of yibum. Shebatchila Aisa Olav B'chlal Heter, that initially, before Reuven married Sarah, Shimon could have married Sarah. Ratza L'Shem Noi Konsa, Ratza L'Shem Ishus Konsa. He could marry her for whatever, right? Before Reuven married Sarah, Shimon could have married Sarah for whatever reason. He's attracted to her, whatever it might be. But Nesra. But then Reuven married Sarah, so Shimon now is also to marry Sarah because of Eishes Ach. Chazra V'Hutra. But then when Reuven dies, Shimon is now permitted to marry Sarah. Yachol tachzu latera rishon? Is it possible that she mamish goes back to her initial permitted status, that Shimon could marry Sarah for whatever reason he wants, even just because he's simply attracted to her? Tamilamu Yevamos aleh le mitzvah. No, it says Yevamos aleh, that Shimon will do yibum with Sarah with intention for it davka being a mitzvah. Rav Amar afilu tema rabbanon. Whereas Rav says, look, you can even understand the brayso according to the rabbis. V'achi kamer, this is how to understand it. Yevamos aleh mitzvah. That when it says that Shimon does yibum with Sarah, it's the mitzvah of yibum. Shebatchila Aisa B'chlal Heter. That initially Shimon could have married Sarah before she married, right? Before Reuben and Sarah got married, Shimon could have technically married Sarah. Ratza konsa, ratza eno konsa. If he wanted to, he can marry her. If he wanted to, he doesn't have to marry Nesra. But then, Reuven married Sarah. So now she's also to Shimon because of Eishesach. Chazar v'hutra. But then, when Reuven died, she becomes permitted to Shimon once again. Yachol tachzu latera rishon. Is it possible that she goes back to the original, to her initial permitted state? Ratza konsa, ratza enu konsa. That if he wants to marry her, if he doesn't want to, he doesn't have to marry her? What do you mean, Ratza Eino Konsa? What do you mean if he doesn't need to marry her? Agida Bey. Bichdi Teipuk? What do you mean? They have Yibum. right? They're just gonna not do Yibum for no reason. Helema Rotza Konsa, Rotza Choleitzla. Rather, no, if he wants to, he can do Yibum. If he wants to, he can do Chalitza. Tamalomo Yevamo Yavo Aleh Mitzvah. So we say that Davke, no, that Yevamo Yavo Aleh, that it's Davka a mitzvah. That there's a mitzvah to do Yibum for whatever reason, and therefore it's preferable to do Yibum, right? So meaning initially, before Reuven married Sarah, Shimon, if he wanted to, he could have married her, could have not married her, right? Then Reuven marries Sarah, and Shimon cannot marry Sarah. Reuven dies without children. So he could do Yibum, he could do Chalitza, but we say Yevam Yavo Aleh mitzvah. It's preferable to do Yibum for whatever reason. Friends, that was Daf Lametes of Masechta Yevamos. The first part of the Daf, we saw machlokas between Abaye and Rava, how to understand the Mishnah from yesterday, when Sarah is a Shomeres Yavam and she gets an inheritance. Abaye says that the way to understand the Reisha is talking about that she got the inheritance when she's a Shomeres Yavam. The Sefer is talking about when she got her inheritance when she was married to Reuven. Rava disagrees and says that both of them are talking about when she got the inheritance when she was a Shomeres Yavam. However, in the Reisha, she got the inheritance before Shimon had done Maimer, and therefore it's all hers. She could do whatever she wants with it. Whereas the Sefer is talking about when she got her inheritance after Shimon had done Maimer with Sarah, and therefore, according to Beis Shammai, they would be able, right? They divide it in half when she dies, right? Her family and Shimon. The Mishnah had said that once you do Yibum, so then your mom is considered married, to the extent that if you want to break up the marriage, you need a divorce, and that they're allowed to get remarried once again. We then got to a Mishnah which discussed once again the mitzvah that the oldest brother should do Yibum. We then had we had asked two questions. The first one is, really we have machlokas between Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. So the first way to understand the machlokas between Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi is what happens in a situation where the older brother is willing to do chalitza, but the younger brother is willing to do Yibum. One opinion is that, Yibum is preferred, and the younger brother should do Yibum. The other opinion is that, no, the older brother is preferred, and the older brother should do Chalitza. There's another way to understand the machlokas, which is that everyone agrees that if the younger brother is willing to do Yibum, so then that would be preferred, because Yibum is preferable to Chalitza. What about a situation when nobody's willing to do Yibum, but everybody's willing to do Chalitza? One opinion is that it's a mitzvah, so let the eldest brother do Chalitza. The other opinion is that no, the mitzvah is to do Yibum. Once already they're not doing Yibum, so then it doesn't really matter who's going to do the Chalitza. We then saw machlokas between Abba Shaul and the Chachamim about what do you do nowadays. Nowadays, is it preferable to do Chalitza over Yibum or not? Abba Shaul says yes, it's preferable to do Chalitza over Yibum because, people are doing Yibum for ulterior motives and it's not good. Whereas the Chachamim say no, it's a mitzvah to do Yibum. That will always be preferred. Friends, that was Daf Lametes of Masechta Yevamos. Hope you enjoyed. Peace out.